Hello and welcome back to Love Fools. I am super excited to be relaunching Love Fools along with She Speaks Radio, now part of the Red Sisterhood, which is really exciting. There has been so much going on over the past couple of weeks and months since I last spoke to you through the airwaves of She Speaks. There has been a lot of change going on in the world, going on with Love School, and some amazing conversations have been had. And I have lined up a couple of really exciting, I hope exciting and interesting episodes for you before we dive in to interviewing more of our mentors from Love School. I had the pleasure of meeting Mari earlier, who is another host here on She Speaks, and she hosts the Small Steps to Wellness show. And we are going to be collaborating very soon, and we're going to be invading each other's radio shows, which is incredibly exciting. And we're going to have a really, really interesting conversation around self-love and how that connects with our body. Now, this conversation that we've had sparked so many threads of conversation, content I've been creating, ideas I've been trying to really get my head around in order to support the people I support at Love School, in order to create content that works, content that's going to really serve and that people are going to benefit from. And my intention is over the next 3 episodes, which are going to be released one after the other for you guys. I'm actually going to record them all at once right now. But because we are going to tease you a little bit, and because I want you to stick around and listen to all of this information I'm going to be sharing with you over the next few episodes, we're going to drip it out over the next 3 episodes. And this really, really important question that was posed by Marley that really sparked this really exciting thread of thought and ideas. And that question is, why can't people change? Why do they fail? Is it because they don't love themselves? Now, what a question, because instantly there were so many answers came to my mind of reasons why we fail. And I want to unpack them all, okay? Because I think this is some really, really valuable information that once I understood, it's made my life better. Once you become aware of it, it gives you more power in your life. It gives you more compassion and understanding. And I just find it really exciting once you can see something and understand such a big problem to make it more achievable to overcome. So the next 3 episodes are going to be focused around answering this question in relation to loving ourselves, loving others, and the connection to other people and how that affects the answer to this question. And loving everything, loving our environment, and how our environment and our external worlds also affect the answer to this question. So this episode today is going to be about why we get stuck or why we can't change. Even when we make an intention to change and we have a really big commitment to change, why can't we? Why do we fail? And I'm using bunny ears. Anyone who's watching, hello, if you're watching, that was a little wave. If you're watching, you can watch us on YouTube, by the way. If you are not aware, this is going to be on YouTube. So if you want to watch and listen, you can. It's not that exciting. It's just me talking to the computer. But you can watch me do that if you really want over on YouTube. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening to us, whether it's through She Speaks or one of the other podcast platforms. I am really, 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 really pleased that you're here and listening. So, yes, I don't particularly like using the word fail because, and this is what we're going to unravel in this answer, we use that word, it has so many connotations, underlying assumptions around it. And it's actually just a lot to unpack the word feel and what it means and where it comes from, and why we are so afraid of this idea of failure. And then what can be triggered when we think we have failed, which is that we stop this change, or whatever change that we've made. Okay, so the idea of the word failure does fit in a lot with the answer to this question, but I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to give energy to that word. Instead, what I want to do is just really help us to unpack and understand what this dynamic is, and why am I talking about it? Who's Terri, and why is she talking about this? What does she know? I am a life designer. I am a designer. I see systems. I design life affirming systems that are aligned with nature. So what I do is I observe nature. I observe patterns, cycles, and create systems from that are more effective and that work in harmony with nature instead of fighting against nature. Now that comes out in different aspects of my work. I create spaces. Some of them are land-based spaces, some of them are online spaces like Love School. But actually all of that I bring together from my design skills, which went originally from creative design to permaculture design and the land projects that I run, I adapted them to myself. I started using my professional skills in design, in creating strategy, and making things happen, and adopted what I call my own brand of life design in order to heal, to recover naturally and holistically in my life. And I now show other people, teach other people, connect with other people around about this information of how you could consciously create your life. And that once you understand how we are in our nature and what we have to really work with in order to reach a goal or to find healing, then you're going to be more successful in it. And ultimately, I want us to create life affirming systems. And our body, ourself as an individual, is a system. We are an ecosystem. Okay, so a lot of the patterns that I've seen that play out in a land-based project, in a community project, in an online space project, also play out within ourselves. Okay, so I teach methods and strategies and tools of how to unpick these different patterns and cycles in order to change them and slightly redirect them so they suit more what we want to achieve in our lives, to get us closer to the results that we would like, to solve the problems that we face in life. Okay, so this big question, why do people fail? Why can't people change? It's a massive question. And this episode is going to be based looking around, is this to do with self-love? Okay, and what is it about navigating a change that requires self-love, and how does that fit with the idea of us loving ourselves? Now, there's a few things that I want to unpack here. And first of all, I want to make it really clear that humans are amazing. Okay, we are amazing, amazing creatures. And we can adapt to pretty much any situation. All you have to look at is all the different places around the world where humans live, where we've been able to settle, where we've been able to grow and evolve, and you'll see just how much we can adapt to our environments, to the situations that we're in. We're an adaptive species. That's what made us so successful as a species, evolutionary, and that's why we're at the top of the food chain, because we can adapt. It is a fundamental of being human and humanity that we can adapt. And one of the points I want to make is that, to start with, so that you really understand, is that adaptiveness is what has helped us to survive in life. It's also what helps us thrive in life, but it is also what causes us to have disease, to have the massive amounts of stress that we have in our life now, because actually, I think now we have learned to tolerate absolutely far too much. And this is what I want to make really clear to start with, right? Because we are created, we're essentially created to adapt. And because we can adapt, and because that becomes fairly naturally to most humans, we just do. And we'll tolerate and we'll take on a lot. And that's part of what makes us special as humans. Now, what makes us unique as individuals is how we adapt, how we choose to adapt, how we respond to life, and how we respond to our situations. But as a general pattern that I've seen within individuals in my lifetime and within society, and we've all on a global scale had a crazy couple of years. And I'm not don't need to tell you why, but we've had, if you just think of what we've been through as a global society in the past few couple of years, that's just how adaptive humans can be. Look at all we've tolerated just over the past couple of years. And that's the first thing I just want to make really clear. So actually, we tolerate a lot, okay? We'll tolerate a lot of stress. We'll tolerate a lot of disharmony. We'll tolerate a lot of conflict. We'll actually now even got to the point where we'll tolerate far too much violence, far too much bullying, far too much mistreatment. And we're going to cover a little bit of that in some of the other episodes. But because we are so tolerant, we'll just naturally go along and adapt and adapt and adapt. And actually, we often don't see or realize how much we've adapted until we get to a crisis point. So this is my next little point I'd like to make about why can't people change? Because actually, one of the reasons why we really struggle to change is because we wait until a crisis. We will not bloomin' change unless we absolutely have to. That is a pattern. I mean, there's different levels of stubbornness amongst humans, but that is a universal that I have realized, a universal truth. Humans will not change unless we have to, because we're so adaptive. We'll find, and I suppose what I mean, so we'll make small incremental changes as we just live, okay? I'm talking about making a conscious change here. I'm not talking about, we always change. I should probably make that clear. We're always changing, we're always evolving. Everything is, all of life is. When I'm saying, when we're having this question, and when this question was posed, this is about reaching goals. This is about making a conscious, intentional change in why we feel. Because actually we often don't fail at making the unconscious, unintentional changes. They just incrementally happen. And that is also part of the solution. Or one of the things worth mentioning is part of the reason why we feel is because it gets to the point where we've created this crisis point where we will not change unless we absolutely have to. And then there's a lot to change. So there's a big change required. And actually the way that humans evolve is very incrementally. We'll evolve a little bit at a time, but we need an evolution point. We need a crisis point to force us to change direction. Otherwise, we absolutely will not. We will not change direction, change the flow of our life, make a big change unless we have to, because it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk. And humans are very intelligent. So we're not going to take that risk unless we absolutely need to, okay? You realize there's a waterfall ahead and it's like, oh my God. You got two options, either going over the waterfall, and when you get to the bottom, you realize you're in a whole new place, you're going to have to change, or you see the waterfall coming, you're like, oops, I better shift direction and do it with quite a lot of energy and gumption to get out of that situation. So this is a little bit what happens. We don't make a conscious change unless we absolutely have to. We've created this crisis point, okay? Because we put so much energy into living, okay? I think we're all very aware of that. Our life has been an investment, and we are who we are and where we are because of all of the decisions we've made in the past, because of everything we've invested our time and energy in, on and around. It makes up who we are. It makes up our identity. It makes up how we live in the world, how we express and who we are. So there's a lot invested in who and where we are in every single moment, even if it's not necessarily somewhere we want to be. we've still invested so much into getting to that place that unless it's worth taking a pretty major risk, we're not going to do it. And it doesn't make sense to do it. So this is why we won't just suddenly change unless a crisis point comes along. The reason we get to these crisis points, though, is because we're pretty much driven by our subconscious mind. It takes much, much, much less energy to do things subconsciously, to do things without having to think about them, because actually thinking, considering, strategizing, which is all the things I teach, actually takes quite a lot of energy, takes quite a lot of brain energy. And if we don't have to do it, why would you? We're programmed as a system to use as little energy as possible and to be as efficient as possible. And making a change of direction takes so much energy that we'll avoid it if we can, okay? So humans, we generally just run off our subconscious pattern, okay? We just do. And changing a subconscious pattern is also a lot of work, okay? Because it is literally going into your brain, programming and reprogramming your mind. And there's lots of reasons why that's challenging, difficult, and we don't want to do it, which I'm going to cover a little in some of the other episodes. But it's just really, really important to understand that, because we always want to make sure that the energy that we are using, the energy that we are putting into life, is being rewarded with something. And actually healing, the goal setting that we tend to set to reach a higher achievement, the reward often doesn't come. So let me explain. The reward may well be the journey itself, building strength, trying to reach a career goal, trying to reach a goal of having a family, for example. But the effort that goes into reaching that goal is more effort than on a day-to-day basis than the reward, because actually the reward comes in hindsight. The reward comes once it's been done. So you actually don't get much of a reward when you commit to, say, a healing path, when you want to make a change for your health or your wellness, when you're working up the ladder for your career, when you're building a family. They take a lot of effort, and the reward doesn't come until you can look back and go, that was worth it. Whereas the coping mechanisms that we use to get us through the day, to make that hard-working day worthwhile, have a quick fix response reward. Okay, that's generally what we feel, or that is what becomes our unconscious, our subconscious patterns, is finding this quick fix, keeping these little lifts that keep us going through the day, that keep us going on our journey towards these larger goals. And that's what can potentially become harmful, especially if that's directed in like addictive habits, or the unhealthy food that we eat, or people that we tend to communicate with if they're not particularly helpful, social media, all these things that can become addictive, that give these little dopamine hits that keep us whoop, 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 just keep us getting through the day, are actually what ends up potentially causing the crisis that we then need to heal from. So it's these little incremental things that lead us to the crisis, but actually then setting another goal to reach that goal, to get out of what caused the crisis, is really hard work. So it's actually a real effort to change, and that's often why a lot of people get we have this hero story attached to it, people who change, people who overcome, people who reach these incredible goals, or who can live a healthy lifestyle, because we understand that actually life is tough, and that we are programmed to try and ease it as much as possible. We are programmed to get through life, to survive. Survival is always our primal response. Thriving comes second if you're lucky. In fact, third probably, because just surviving's great, functioning, good. Thriving is whole next level. And so you have to learn how to get out of survival mode and just into functional mode for a while. And then if you want to thrive in life and get on that next level, you've got to get out of functional mode and into the next level of thriving. And all of that takes effort. They're all up steps of goal setting that require a lot of long-term continual effort. And actually, there's another juxtaposition to this behavior that we have as humans, all right? So it'll take crisis to cause us to shift direction, to cause us to want to set that new goal, to get out of that place and get us into that place, okay? And it's a real challenge to move. We've covered that. But actually, we can't make a change while we are in a fight or flight mode, right? So we reach a crisis point, but if we stay in that crisis point, we can't actually make a change. And that's because when our fight or flight mode, when our trauma mode is activated, which is as simple as, can this kill me? And if the answer is yes, on any level, like any thread, our mind will be like, if this could end in death. And I tell you what, if you trace it back, there's a lot of situations our minds can't think end in death, and we'll try and avoid that completely. If we are in that panic mode and there's a potential that this could lead to death, our subconscious mind takes over. Our subconscious mind is super, super powerful. It takes a lot of intention to stay in your conscious mind. That's why we don't often do it. And we can't then make a change whilst we are in that panic mode. Even though the crisis point might cause us to change direction, the panic will maybe give us that initial move into the direction we need to move to get out of that situation. But if we stay in that, we get stuck again. And this is why, because in order to make a change, we have to be calm. We have to be in our conscious mind. We have to be from a place of supporting ourselves, of nurturing ourselves, of being able to be disciplined. And we can't access that part of our mind, which comes from our conscious mind, if we're panicking, because our subconscious takes over. So this is where the healing juxtaposition comes into play, because the crisis might change, might cause the change in direction, or the awareness that you need to change direction. The panic might actually start moving you in a certain direction. But if you want to keep going in that direction, if you want the longevity to reach that goal and make long-term sustainable changes, you have to get out of your subconscious mind. Therefore, you have to calm yourself down. You have to get out of the panic mode. And when you do that, you are then more likely to be reassuring to yourself that where you are is fine. Do we understand that juxtaposition now where people get stuck and trapped? Because I feel that's really important, and that's what I'm trying to get across in this whole episode. That in order to make the change, a crisis happens. We panic, so we move into a safer direction, but we can't keep moving at that pace. We have to calm ourselves down. And in order to make an ongoing long-term change, we need to be in a nurturing, supportive frame of mind. And part of once we get into that nurturing, supportive frame of mind is that we don't feel as panicked to shift and change, that we start to think where we are is all right. And this is when we can get caught in a whole new pattern of then realizing, oh shit, no, this is actually dangerous. It's this death thing. And then shifting again and trying to move direction and panicking and then failing, because actually once we get out of that panic mode, we start to say, oh, well, maybe it's where I am is okay. Maybe I don't need to move quite so quickly and quite so urgently. And all of these spaces are true. So the crisis point is true and right. If you get into that point, you need to make a move. You need to make a change. The panic and being like, well, actually, if I don't make a change, there might be an awful consequence is also true and right. There might be an awful consequence if you don't change the main direction of your life where it's heading in. And it's also true the way you are maybe isn't that bad, but you still don't want to be moving in a direction that causes you harm. So the direction that you're shifting into the panic is the direction you want to be going. You just need to put in the effort to change the whole flow of your life into that direction. So one of the things that we've made really clear with Mari is sometimes we think of life as going up in levels, like a staircase in our house. Okay, we go along a bit up, along a bit up. And this is kind of what I'm explaining a little bit in that pattern. That can happen, okay, but more so, instead of thinking it is going up and move along a bit, up and move along a bit, if we start to think of our life as a spiral, okay, so we're not always getting stuck in the same situation. Every time a situation or a pattern comes around, we actually have the opportunity to see it from a slightly different perspective. We've gone up a little bit, we changed direction, we moved our position, we've got the advantage of perspective now. So even if we do slip back into an old pattern, or we do slip back into something that's unhealthy for us, or we do miss our goal, you can see why and how from this whole new perspective. So then when you start again, you're never starting from the original crisis point. It's a whole new one. But when we realize that we're actually spiraling through life as an evolution, we're going around and round, but we're also going up, okay, and potentially down if that's the path that we follow. But it goes around and round, and it goes up and down. So we can always, no matter what change we make, we're always gaining a new perspective, where we can notice that these are the patterns and the cycles that we move in, and we can choose to make a change. Okay, there is so much to unpack in this, and I am going to do the next 2 episodes talking about how other people can affect our ability to make a change, and how our environment can affect our ability to make a change. But I really, really think that if we can understand this juxtaposition of healing, and why we heal, why we want to heal, and why we can struggle to heal, and have just that sense of awareness and compassion towards ourselves, we can make a healing journey much more rewarding as an actual journey. We can have much less stress in it. We can make the changes without it having to be radical, and understand that change takes time, because it does, it really does. And a lot of effort, which we need to respect. As much as we can like to imagine this perfect person in our head, and we can potentially get there, nobody's perfect, not a perfect person, but you can set a goal for yourself that I want to improve this area of my life, and you can get there with this work and effort, but it's not going to happen instantly, and it's not going to happen without putting in the work. It happens incrementally, a little step at a time, around that spiral staircase. One step at a time, getting a little bit more perspective and gaining a little bit more reward each time you go up and around. Thank you so much for listening. Join me for the next episode, where I'm going to be talking about the same question. Okay, why people fail, why people struggle when they're trying to reach a goal, but we're going to look at it from a different angle, and we're going to consider how other people can affect us when we're trying to make a change. I will see you on the next episode.